that read, 80% of people on this earth love to sleep. And while I can't argue with this fact, I've realized that in the past 2 years, I'm not part of the 80%. Because unlike most people, I dread the time when I'm supposed to sleep. And this ghastly experience will tell you why. My name is Axel Cooper, and every night for the past 2 years, I've suffered from a really peculiar case of sleep paralysis. It started around the month of June, back in 2015. I had recently got back from a trip, and since I was tired, I immediately went to bed. I'm guessing it took around 5 minutes before the morbid experience began. I was in a very lucid dream-like state. I tried to move my arms and legs, but I couldn't. I was about to panic when out of the corner of my eye, I could see a very terrifying creature. A huge black gutter rat was on my bed, and before I could say anything, it was joined by numerous other gutter rats.
Ugh.
There were about 20 to be exact. Terrified, I began to ask myself how they had gotten inside the house. As I opened my mouth to call out to my wife, nothing but silence came out of my mouth, as it horrifically dawned on me that I couldn't speak. Within 5 seconds, the real horror began, as the gutter rats all rushed at me baring their teeth. There are no words to explain the immeasurable pain and agony that I felt when they began to sink their teeth into my skin.
Oh, God.
They ate me alive slowly, and no matter how much I screamed, all I heard was the sound of my own tearing flesh. It didn't take long before I began to feel myself dying, and as I was about to take my last breath, I woke up screaming and drenched in sweat. My wife immediately woke up as the gut-churning scream rang through the entire house. I began to hear footsteps down the hall as my 2 children, Matt and Lisa, rushed into the room. My whole family surrounded me as they began to ask me what was wrong. I told them that I just had a bad dream and it was nothing to be worried about. My wife Mary didn't look too convinced as she asked me, "Are you sure that's what it was?
Are you sure?
Because you look really terrified, Axel." I assured her that it was, before apologizing for waking her and the kids. I put the kids back to bed, and I felt scared to go back to mine as I didn't want to have the same dream again. I didn't sleep that night, as I stayed up all night trying to forget the vivid dream. The next day I told myself that it was just a bad dream and I shouldn't think of it too much. But in the coming nights, I realized that I was wrong, as the bad dreams kept happening every single night after that, and each one was worse than the last. Every night for the past 2 years, I can assure you that I've experienced almost every single horrific way of dying. From being stabbed numerous times by little demon children, all the way to being burned to death. Every new night, there's always something different, and I can never do anything to stop it or help myself, as my muscles always became flaccid during the horrific dreams. I had to move out of my bedroom and sleep in the garage, as the screams were becoming unbearable for my wife and children. No matter how much I tried, it never stopped. I even tried avoiding sleep for some days, but that never lasted as long, as my body would always get the best of me. Night after night, I would wake up screaming and drenched in sweat. My wife began to spend a lot of money taking me to numerous doctors and specialists, who all coined the experience as sleep paralysis. She bought numerous pills and took me for numerous sessions, but I told her to stop as I knew it wasn't going to work. As deep down, I knew the exact reason why I was going through this hellish experience every night, because I myself chose to do so. To understand what I just said, I need to take you back exactly 2 years ago before this all began. I had just been diagnosed with a terminal disease, And all the doctors I went to see told me that there was no hope as my life would soon be over. I didn't tell my wife about this
No.
as I didn't want her to worry, so I kept it to myself. The fear of leaving her and my children alone was terrifying, so I decided to do anything in my power to fix it. Since medicine and science had failed me, I decided to seek spiritual help, so I traveled abroad to seek a spiritual healer. When I arrived at the place, I was ushered into a hut. I walked in to see a hooded woman sitting on the floor, mumbling what I assumed were incantations. I sat down next to her, and I began to explain everything to her. When I was done, she told me that she can fix me, as she was sure that she had the solution to my problem. She then told me that nothing in this world is free, and I would have to pay a very steep price for it. I immediately agreed as I said to her, "Anything to stay alive." She then gave me a foul concoction to drink. I had never tasted anything more revolting in my life, but I still drank every drop of it.
Ugh.
When I was done, the hooded woman then looked over at me and said,
You have just drunk the remains of a dead fetus. This was done to give you the fresh stench of death. Through this, you will be spared from dying. But every night for the rest of your life, you will lay with death as compensation for her sparing your life.
I was completely shocked and confused at what I had just heard, as I really didn't know what to make of it. The hooded woman then began to come really close to me, and as the sight of her face became visible, I nearly screamed in horror, as I could see that she had no eyes, and only dark gaping holes filled her eye sockets. The feeling of regret began to creep up, as I felt that I had just gotten myself into something really messed up. But I knew that it was too late to go back now. So even though I was shocked and scared by what I had just seen and heard, I strengthened my resolve as I knew that it was my only hope. After the strange meeting, I quickly went to the airport and made my way home. When I got back from the trip, I immediately visited numerous doctors to get a new diagnosis. And after running some tests, to their disbelief, they all shockingly told me that I had been miraculously cured. Now, even after 2 years of gruesome nights, I'm still pulling through it all. Even though the burden that I'm carrying is maddening, even though this isn't the life that I wanted to live, I know that if I was given the same opportunity, I would do it again and choose life. Everything has a price in this world. While I'm stuck in an infinite loop of one-night stands with death herself, I take solace in the fact that, when it's over, I know that I'll be able to see tomorrow with my beautiful family. And that, to me, that's 1,000,000 times worth the steep price.
Oh my god.
My father died when I was
That's just wrong what that is.